Hey, well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Denver Bronco Roundup podcast. And we're brought to you by Rocky Mountain Sports Network. We're sponsored by the amazing Morgan Trinkets. My name is Keith Brugman. I want to be your host for this evening, as well as at least two of the other horsemen, maybe all three. We'll see how things gallop in this evening, see if Jody rides in on his horse and joins us this evening. But that being said, let's say hello to everybody else. We'll say hello to Posse in just a moment. I want to start off with Mr. Trevor Salzman this evening. How we doing, Trevor?
Doing great, Keith. It's a busy time in Broncos country. Some players that we thought were on the bubble made the roster. Some players that we thought made the roster or wouldn't make the roster didn't. So excited to break it all down. Moves are not officially done yet. So this is the initial 53-man roster. There will be more moves to come. Stay tuned.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Paul, appreciate it, man. We spruced up the intro a little bit. Glad you maybe have noticed, or maybe you just like it in general. His music stayed the same, so appreciate it. And Albert, Mile High Dutchie, he's the one who said, "Hey, Keith, we probably should move on from Mr. Russell Wilson and get a new look in there on our intro." Albert, thanks for pointing that out and getting us on track. He always keeps us on track. How you doing this evening, sir?
I'm doing very well, and you should see those moves Trevor does when he dances. That is amazing.
Yeah.
So he has the move. He has the moves. So yeah, it's a great day. Today the weather was a little bit over the top, 103 degrees here and high humidity. But other than that, it was a really good day. Nice, relaxed day with the missus, and tomorrow go back to work.
Ain't that the way it goes? Yeah, I'm on the same timeline. Today's my Sunday, I guess you could say. So back to work tomorrow. But hey, got to say hello to the posse. Say hello to everybody. I'm going to start off with Michael Ronquillo. Came in here, dropping some stars, saying hello. So Michael, appreciate it so much. Saying good evening, Keith, Albert, Trevor, maybe Jody as well. Orange and blue hearts, mile high salute, clapping it up. We appreciate you, Mr. Michael Ronquillo, the Ronk, coming in here. Got to say hello to everybody. Paula came in here super early saying hello in there. Well, hello out there. Appreciate you jumping in, being a part of the podcast. It is. Scott's bringing it up as well. He says, "Hey, Paul, so far only two of us on this cut day." And that was the first mention on this cut day. Paul and Scott, thanks for jumping in here super early. Paul saying what's up to everybody else. And I'm going to maybe double up on this one. I think it was Graham who said this as well. Graham came in here and said, sad to see TP go, at least an NSA team, though. There's a great way to get us started on some of the big talk I think we should talk about right off the top. Paul came in as well, said, yep, I guess Vele took Tim Patrick's spot in his opinion. Scott saying, yep, TP to Detroit. Reynolds better not drop anything. And that's right there. I'll just go to Albert first, man. I know that all of us, I think, we're Tim Patrick fans. I think Broncos country, we're big Tim Patrick fans. So we're not outliers in thinking that we really would have liked to seen Tim Patrick on this roster. What was your reaction? What are your thoughts now? I know at first everyone just was like almost devastated when we found out that he might not be here in Denver.
Yeah, I'm sad to see him go. He prepared really well for this season. I think he was ready for the season. The only thing is, his age that was maybe foreboding. But yeah, if he would have been on the season, I would have gotten a jersey from him for his jersey to this year. So yeah, but I'm hoping he will get on really good shot there with the Lions, if I'm not mistaken, and that he will be on their regular squad, active squad, really well.
Yeah, sounds like he's going to get a practice squad opportunity, but they really like him and think that he can be moved into that starting lineup roster maybe sooner rather than later. Trevor, I'm going to ask the exact same question. Initial reaction, and have those thoughts maybe changed, and how do you feel about it right now? So
yeah, I mean, initial thoughts, I was a little surprised just because we didn't see much of Tim Patrick throughout the preseason. So a lot of the times these teams will play these guys to showcase them off a little bit. I kind of think Zach Wilson was showcased off a little bit, but and just nothing materialized. But again, with Tim Patrick, I think it's, again, happy that he went to Detroit. He's going to get a chance to make that roster, gets a chance to go possibly, deep into the playoffs. Finally has, I think, a mainstay at quarterback there with Jared Goff. But the Broncos, I think this is an opportunity for not just Devon Vele to step up, but also Mr. Marvin Mims. This has got to be a time that these two guys had to step up into a role. I mean, Tim Patrick, I think, could have definitely been a starter for the Denver Broncos team this year. And that's why initially I had him, because I thought that he did enough to be that guy. But I think this is about the youth movement. I think some of the roster changes today that they made, some of the guys they kept, I think it's about the youth. And, you've seen Samaje Perine too. They moved off him, kept Blake Watson. So I think that's just, again, the youth movement on this team. Sean Payton has repeated that saying over and over again since, honestly, minicamp came around. He just the youth of this team and what this roster has, and they proved that today and yesterday with some of the moves they made. A bum that Tim's not around here, just like Pearl said, but I'm excited for him in the future. Excited to see what Vele, Marvin Mims can do. Maybe show why they could possibly be the guys going forward. Hopefully, I think short term for Bo Nix, I'm a little concerned about it because I think him and Tim Patrick had that connection off the bat, it seemed like. But I think for the long run, this could really help the Broncos, kind of grow and grow with some of these young guys.
Yeah. I think you said most of it there, buddy. I mean, not to say that you talked too long or anything, but great. Seriously, great synopsis. I mean, here's a guy that deserves an opportunity. We thought should be on the roster. Broncos country is going to miss him. Bo Nix, what a great security blanket. We saw Tim Patrick be the security blanket for multiple quarterbacks when healthy. I don't know if it's a net positive as of today, but what it can be is certainly, hopefully, I mean, that's what Sean Payton, George Payton are out there doing is making sure that we're set for the future. Got to say hello to some more people in the posse, guys and gals all the way across the board. Roy Osborne saying, hey there, Horseman and the posse. Appreciate it, Roy. Appreciate all your support and appreciate you being in here. Appreciate you being part of the posse. Got Kenny Kirkpatrick saying, good evening, my friend, my podcast family. Best in the business, DBR, Keith, Trevor, Albert, best around. Appreciate you, Kenny over at the amazing K&K Sports Show. If you haven't checked out their shows, it seems like we talk about them quite a bit, but I'm telling you, man, they are getting all geared up for the season, just like we are over here at the DBR and Rocky Mountain Sports Network. Check out the K&K Sports Show and the plethora of shows they have going on over there. Jeremy Dressler, good friend of mine, coming in saying, sup, fellas, go Broncos up. It's good to see you, Jeremy. What's up with you? Hope you're doing well. Pearl's coming in. Pearl Heater, if you don't know, Morgan Trinkets. Pearl's a fantastic sponsor of the show. Appreciate you jumping in here. Hey, we know this name. Probably one of our first supporters as Albert jumped aboard, it seemed. It all came about the same time, saying Michelle Knopper is coming in and saying, evening, gents. No, Michelle has been with us through thick and thin when we were just a few, 100 subscribers to where we're at today. Appreciate Michelle's unbelievable support that she shows, not only Albert, but everybody, everybody on the screen, you guys out there in the posse. She takes good care of us. Thank you, Michelle. Well, like I said, we kind of dove into this offensive roster. I think we have a few other questions. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just bring up the 53-man roster as we see. Offensive side first, since we started on that side of the ball, guys. But as I bring this up and everyone can start taking a look here and seeing, how our room kind of stacks up. First, I just want to hit this, and I want to hit a question that was in the chat as well. Oh, did I miss? There was one other one that I wanted to hit, and I can't believe it if I missed it already. Oh my goodness. Phil McLaughlin came in here dropping stars saying good evening. I was waiting until the very end, and then I wanted to get to this question. He says, good evening, Keith, Rocketman, and Dutchie. Seems there will be more free agent action or some more action in free agency soon. Maybe some offensive line depth. I think that's a great place to start. We'll go ahead and maybe take a look at this offensive line as we see it today and answer maybe what we think, where there could be some some depth added, I guess you could say. I'll get rid of Phil's comment just so that we can see Albert just a little bit better while we do this. But keep that in mind, Phil. We have your question in mind. Offensive line. I'm going to run through it real quick. Start off with the Alex Forsyth and Luke Wattenberg, Alex Palczewski, Mike McGlinchey, Garrett Bowles, Frank Crum makes the roster. I think that was one of the biggest surprises. Ben Powers, Quinn Myers, and then Matt Pert. Albert, like I said, I guess I pointed out one biggest surprise. Do you agree Frank Crum maybe being the biggest surprise here? And then we'll jump over to maybe Trevor and think about where we could maybe add some depth after that. Biggest surprises on this offensive line roster as it came out.
Yeah, Frank Crum is definitely a surprise. But yeah, it is needed. And I have seen some good things on him. When we saw him in the preseason games, there were some good things. He needs to learn still, and that is normal. It takes a couple of years to be a really good offensive lineman. What is probably the most surprising is, most likely Garrett Bowles is the oldest player in the field for the Broncos.
True, I think you're right.
And I think the average age of the offense might be somewhere around 26 years old, average age. And that is something that is worth mentioning too.
Mm-hmm.
Because this whole team is young. And I think, this is exactly what Sean Payton wants to do. He wants to build for the future, and then that is what he is doing. And that's where Frank Crum comes in play as well, because he is young and he can learn now. And then with Quinn Miners on the other side, I think the future might be bright for us.
I like it. I'm just going to go through a couple of the names before I throw it over to you, Trevor. Calvin Throckmorton. I'm sorry. Demontre Jacobs, Nick Gargiulo. I always mess that name up. Will Sherman, Sam Mustipher. Those were other offensive linemen that obviously were cut from this roster. Didn't make the 53. Obviously have some opportunities. Again, practice squad. We'll see how all that shakes out. Again, what do you think about the offensive line roster? And to go back to Phil's question, do you think there's opportunity to add some depth here?
Yeah, I think there's some opportunity to add some depth there for sure. I mean, I think that's one of many different places they're going to look to add depth. I've also heard inside linebackers is another spot where they're looking to add as well, according to Mike Kliss. So I expect them to add something there, or try to anyways. But yeah, on the offensive line, because listen, let's be real, they're an injury away from being very concerning. I mean, especially, so what if a Garrett Bowles or Mike McGlinchey goes down? Where are you at with that? I mean, the depth goes away pretty quickly. So it's just, Frank Crum, I was a little surprised he made the roster just based upon the film. And, and George Payton said this, he got beat a couple times, and pass pro. And it's just something that's concerning. But I think there's upside there. I wonder if they're going to move him down to the practice squad eventually. Like he made this initial 53 man, but maybe he's sent down to the practice squad eventually. I think that they thought, that he was going to get swept up by another team if he didn't make the initial 53 man, because I thought there was a couple other guys that outplayed him. Demontre Jacobs, I thought he outplayed Frank Crum, and he ended up getting released. So I think Crum's got a lot of upside. He's huge. Again, the talent's there, in my opinion, potentially, and he's a big guy. I think that's what they really love about him, his size. But I think he's really raw, and I wonder if he's a little too raw to keep him on the initial 53 man longer term. And Palczewski, we'll see with him. Again, I think that this is the year for him to make that big jump, especially if you're trying to keep Frank Crum around as that developmental tackle. But yeah, I mean, a couple guys I was a little surprised about, and Jacobs was one of those guys that I thought was going to make it over Crum. I thought Crum was one of those guys that you could probably stash in the practice squad just based upon what he did on film. So a little surprised there, but yeah, there's definitely room to add there. I would, I think with guard, you can have Forsyth be a guard there. I would look to add to this offensive line, because again, one injury away, you're putting Bo Nix in a real difficult situation as far as protection wise. So yeah, a couple of surprise moves today for sure.
Fourth Horseman checking in, if you didn't notice in the comments, saying that loves seeing Frank Crum make the 53, but he thinks he needs to play to his natural position, which is actually left tackle. And yeah, I still go back. We love Andrew Mason. Actually, we have extended an offer for Andrew Mason maybe to come aboard and talk football for a few minutes. But that being said, he once said, switching positions from left tackle to right tackle, and this is going to get a little bit racy for the DBR, but he said it's kind of like trying to wipe your butt with your opposite hand. It's not very natural, and it feels pretty uncomfortable at first, and it takes quite a bit of time before you get it perfected. So just keep that in mind. If these guys, they're asked a lot of times, hey, maybe you can switch positions. Maybe you can do something on the right side versus the left side, go inside versus going outside. It's a good point that maybe this guy, if he is given an opportunity at his natural position, maybe he just plays better, because it's definitely being an offensive line guy. Once playing on the offensive line, it's different playing one side to the other completely. It is completely different. So go ahead, buddy.
No, and just keep in mind, I mean, look how healthy this team was last year on the offensive line. Do you think that there's a great chance that's going to happen again this year? I don't know, and your depth's not that much better. So I think it's something they have to take into consideration, for protecting Bo Nix, the rookie quarterback. You have to make sure he's protected. And one injury goes down to one of these guys, I mean, it's pretty tough, I think, to protect Bo Nix, some of these teams that you're playing. So while I do like Frank Crumb's upside, he's raw, and I just think that you need a little bit more stability on the offensive line as far as depth purposes.
Yeah, I'm going to flip the script just a little bit. Graham was kind of coming in here. I'm going to flip it because he was talking about Tim Patrick, saying would have been ideal if he was traded, if their trade would have been made. Obviously they were trying to make that happen. I think that allows us to kind of segue really quick. There's another guy that's not on this roster that we were also trying to trade, and that's one Samaje Perine. I'll just say this really quick. I put it out there, at least in comment Twitterville, I think it was. But, that being said, thank you to Samaje Perine. He came in here after Melvin Gordon, lined up alongside Javonte Williams, and quite honestly, he went out there and he did everything that was expected, of him, I believe, during his tenure here with the Broncos. Would have loved to seen a trade made there and get some value, but it's tough. You're right everyone knows you're right up against the trade deadline or the cut deadline, and if you can't make a trade happen, these guys are going open market, and there'll be an opportunity there as well. So, but I just want to say thank you, Samaje Perine. Albert, I'll hit you first. Samaje Perine not on this roster. Your thoughts on that, and are you still good with the running back room minus Samaje Perine?
Yeah, I'm good with it. We have two bruisers and a speedster. What more can you want? And if you put two of them in the backfield, either the speedster and a bruiser or two bruisers, you can go many, many, many ways. And so, and I think we will see a better Javonte Williams that we saw last year. I think he's pretty much at the same weight and again as his rookie year, so he's quicker, he's faster, he's shiftier. So I think that will help him a lot too, and definitely will help him with his past injury. So I think we will see much more of him. I was surprised that we didn't see him so much in the preseason games.
Yeah.
But they apparently already have a really good picture of him, what he can do. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. Again, much, much younger. What is the average age there? 24, 25 maybe?
Maybe we'll do the math after the show, figure out the average age of this team. Trevor, your thoughts on this running back room? We'll run through this a little bit quicker because there's a couple of comments I want to get on the offensive side, and then we'll want to get over to the defensive side as well. So offensive side of the ball, running back room, your thoughts on Perine gone and the roster as it sits right now?
Yeah, I just hope that it's moving off of Perine is not something they're going to regret, because I do think he's good, in pass pro and pass protection to help this offensive line. And he was pretty good at when Russell Wilson last year was dishing the ball off. He was pretty good at getting those yardage. And I just wonder with Bo Nix, if you're going to do that with him, are you missing something there with Perine, by not having him? But that wasn't even the biggest surprise to me. Blake Watson making this roster. I mean, they really got to have a role for him, I think, if you're going to keep 4 running backs. I did not have them keeping 4 running backs. I didn't see him really spark a ton in preseason, in my opinion. It's just he was one of those guys I was a little surprised that they brought back, but understandably, if they have a role for him on special teams. And it seems like that's a recurring thing that's come about here is special teams, special teams, special teams. If they can play special teams, well, there's a great chance they're going to make this roster. So I think that was the case. Of course, I think with Blake Watson more than anything was his role on special teams. And George Payton did say that earlier today when he was mentioning, Blake Watson when he was speaking to the media today. So, but I think that, Javonte, McLaughlin, Estime, we all kind of expected those guys to be the guys. And I do, in fact, think that those will be the guys going forward, and specifically Javonte and Jaleel McLaughlin, estimating periods of time. But I think Javonte and McLaughlin are going to be your two premier backs going into the season.
Okay, I'm going to take you from running back. I'm going to flip you over to wide receiver. Jeremy Dressler said, I'm kind of surprised Troy Franklin made the 53. Give me your short and sweet on that one. Like, again, we want to get to a few more things, but I want to get over to Albert on the same question.
Yeah, he's a 4th-round draft pick, and you just drafted him. I mean, and I don't think they're going to expect a ton out of Troy Franklin this year. I think he's more of a developmental guy this year, and guy maybe, in the pipeline for down the road. Like I said, that's why I think Ville and Marvin Mims this year are 2 guys that need to step up. I didn't mention Troy Franklin's name for a reason. I don't think they expect him to be that guy right now. Down the road, of course, but yeah, I mean, he's just a guy that young, has upside, but just is not quite ready, to be that guy just quite yet.
Yeah. Albert, your thoughts? Marvin Mims making this. Troy Franklin making this roster spot, man.
Yeah, you need speedsters on the practice squad of not on the special teams. So, and I think that's where Blake Watson is probably going to perform the most. And like Trevor said, developmental. But we already know that they have a chemistry with Bo Nix, especially Troy Franklin has chemistry with Bo Nix. And I think, again, Sean Payton is building on the future. And this is where it is going, because Troy Franklin will be a player of the future. And then with Bo Nix, it just makes sense, start making more and more sense. And I think by the end of the season, we will see way more of Troy Franklin than in the beginning of the season.
Very good, man. Very good. Yeah, I like what Pearl said. It's kind of feeling like a full rebuild. You keep talking about the age of this roster. If you're talking about a rebuild, you go young, because you're getting off of all those veteran contracts for one. You're going with cheaper contracts, and you're looking more towards the future because you know that there's going to be some development that's going to need to be made. Doesn't matter if you're talking about Bo Nix. It doesn't matter if you're talking about Audric Estime. It doesn't matter if you're talking about Troy Franklin. It's up and down the roster where we see room for development. Douglas Wall comes in here talking a little bit more about Tim Patrick. He says, I believe it was a special effort to get Tim P the ball to showcase him. There were very clearly others open. 40 chess, Sean Payton. Yeah, that's very, very true. And, I even like what Sean Payton came out and was talking about Zach Wilson, not to get on a quarterback talk quite yet. But that being said, he came out with Zach Wilson saying he wants to get the guy paid. He wants to get the guy, he knows that he can be a high paid, high quality, high caliber quarterback. I think that, him going out there, even if he thinks he needs to move on from Tim Patrick, he did the right thing in showcasing him, and giving him an opportunity to show off to those other 31 teams that, hey, I'm back. You know what I mean? I can be productive, and there's a reason that you'd want me on your roster. So 40 chess and just good all-around guy, in my opinion.
I disagree with showcasing him. I don't think they showcased him well at all, in my opinion. I mean, I think that he should have played more. I think that you could argue, and I wonder this, if you could have showcased him more, because they did it last year with Alberto. They played him a ton, and then everybody thought, well, he might come back, and then they end up flipping him in a trade. Well, now you got nothing for Troy Franklin, or excuse me, not Troy Franklin.
Tim Patrick,
sorry. And I just think that he played limited reps instead on the sideline. I just think that maybe there was an opportunity missed for him to play more maybe you could have got something for him in a trade, possibly making that less of a sorry he was. They're just maybe, and I'm just throwing that maybe out there, just throwing that out there. Maybe there was a missed opportunity to get something for him instead of just getting nothing for him and releasing him.
I'll give you my maybe, and then we're going to flip to another question that we had from the posse. Maybe they showcased him just enough, and maybe they wanted to make sure he didn't get injured.
Well,
honestly, when he goes out there, he snags a couple of great balls, shows up and gets a penalty, goes out there the next week, gets another couple of great balls, get him off the field. Get him off the field, you know what I mean, before he gets hurt, especially if you think there's any value for him to be traded. This is the question that came in from Greg Smith. Greg, appreciate you jumping in. Great supporter of the show. He wants to know, and I'll give this one to you, Trevor, is there a clear number 2 wide receiver on this roster? What do you say to Greg?
I think it's got to be Josh Reynolds. That's what you brought him in here to do. I mean, because the reason I say that is because Mims and Vele haven't proven to be anything up to this point. So Josh Reynolds and Cortland Sutton are your 2 veteran presence on this team. It's got to be Josh Reynolds. If Sutton's your number 1, Josh Reynolds, I think, has got to be number 2. Again, got to keep the hold of the ball, and I'm concerned with his knee. Hopefully that's not a concern. I know that kind of came up a little bit with your, a couple of weeks ago about his knee, but to me, it's got to be Josh Reynolds.
Very good. Over to Albert. I'll remove the comment. I'm not used to this setup, Albert. I keep covering your face. I apologize. Is there a clear number 2 wide receiver on this roster for you?
No, and there isn't one, and I think it might come it might come from through free agency. They're going outside the Broncos group and pick one up from the street. Let's call it that way.
Yeah, I was right on board with you, but I don't think we are able to find one on the street. Honestly, it's pretty tough to have that high level of expectation. It's not going to come through the cut wire. You know what I mean? It's probably would have to come through a trade if we end up doing anything. And for me, it's going to have to come off this roster. But I guess you can say by default it has to be Josh Reynolds. But as far as a clear-cut number 2 on here, I think there's opportunity up and down this roster. And if Tim Patrick was still on this roster, that's the guy that would have been my clear-cut number 2. So that tells you kind of where we're at with this roster, in my opinion. I know that you're shaking your head, but I can't say that I have much confidence in a Josh Reynolds regardless. Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims, and Devon Vele, you got to definitely be like jury's out until further notice. It's a lot of question marks. But hopefully we have a great plan from our coach, Sean Payton.
And we might have already a number 2, and it is not even on the list on the wide receivers. The Joker, Greg Dulcich.
Yeah, I mean, he could always be the number 2 receiver on this roster. It could come that way. I would have liked to see a lot more from Greg Dulcich to have some more faith in that one as well. So I'm going to flip the script. We're going to go to running backs, guys, because Michael Ronquillo, he comes in, he's dropping some stars. He says, I read George Payton is confident in running back Jaleel McLaughlin working on his pass and run blocking. Again, not to hide anybody's star comments, but I'll drop it off the screen so I can see Albert as well. Albert, I'll go to you on this one real quick. What are your thoughts? Jaleel McLaughlin, do you have faith that he can come in there and have good third down pass blocking, run blocking abilities in this backfield?
If McLaughlin comes into the field, it's not because he can be a pass blocker. He might be a little bit of an obstacle, but that's about it. And no, he comes in there for specialty plays, and I think that is what is going to happen. We will see him using his speed most of the times. Because what is he? 185, 190? That's about it. And
probably right, yeah.
And those edge rushers, they're 265. They will they will trample him in the lawn so quickly. No, he is not there for pass blocking.
Fair enough. I actually just watched a little clip about a running back trying to block Von Miller in practice because running backs go up against linebackers. And he's like, Coach, how is this even fair? So to your point, like you said, those edge rushers going up against a guy like McLaughlin, sometimes good luckily, especially if it's at the level of prime Von Miller. Trevor, what are your thoughts? George Payton has faith. George Payton seems a little removed from maybe the on-field abilities of one Jaleel McLaughlin today. What are your thoughts on him being that run blocker, that pass blocker that can come in, thus being maybe a 3-down back?
Yeah, I mean, there's always a chance, but I think he's got a ways to go still, in my opinion. I still think it's Javonte's job for the most part, but the pass pro, I think he's gotten better. I think that's maybe a part of why you're moving off from P. Ryan. I don't think he's ever going to be great at it, and ever going to be one of his strengths. I think he's getting better in a way. SMA in a way as well. He's showing signs of being that pass blocker as well. You're probably using couple of your tight ends, fullbacks in there as well. So I don't think they're just going to rely upon McLaughlin to be in pass pro a ton anyways. Again, because like what Dutchie said, his size, he's not necessarily the biggest guy in the world. So it's not really the biggest and most fairest matchup either. So
yeah. Well, we were talking about like all-stars, like Von Miller in his prime. I want to talk to you and everybody else out there about an all-star as well, and that's Morgan Trinkets. Morgan Trinkets is our fantastic sponsor. And I'm telling you what, if you're ever in the market for Southwest jewelry, Southwest pottery, or estate gold at wholesale prices, why not go to somebody that's been doing it for 33 years in the industry? That's Morgan Trinkets. Morgan Trinkets was once a nationwide company. Now focus right there in northern Colorado, southern Wyoming. They're out there doing shows all summer long. But I tell you what, the easiest way to contact them right there over on Facebook, Morgan Trinkets on Facebook. You can see a lot of their inventory, but just message Pearl and she'll get you all hooked up with whatever you're looking for. She'll dig through the boxes, find that special piece that you've been looking for, and get it shipped out. Any purchase over $50, which is a PayPal purchase on Facebook, is shipped absolutely free. And if you meet up with her at any of the shows, all major credit cards are accepted as well. Please check out Morgan Trinkets. They are a fantastic sponsor. Our posse have been loving them. If you're new, and like I said, Southwest jewelry, Southwest pottery, or estate gold at wholesale prices are your thing, or even silver, like true sterling silver, starting at $10 going all the way up to $2,000. She has that as well. Check out Morgan Trinkets. I'll drop the link in just a moment. Appreciate you, Paul, giving a little shout out over there on YouTube for Morgan Trinkets as well. So, well, gentlemen, one other question that we had, or at least was brought up, I'll bring the offensive up just one more time, was the fact that we did keep 3 quarterbacks. And there was a little bit of question, certainly a lot of question when we first entered this offseason and we had these 3 quarterbacks. Maybe it seemed it was a little bit more sorted towards the end that this is going to be the case. Sean Payton pretty much coming out and saying as such. What do you think about the 3 quarterbacks? And then we had a question. I'll see if I can find it. But there was a question on who is the number 2 in this lineup if you had to go ahead and set the roster for game day. Albert, I'll go to you. Your thoughts on the 3 quarterbacks and who's your number 2?
For me, from what I have seen, I would say Zach Wilson. Again, it is the younger generation, and I really like what I saw him do. He is not that Teddy Bridgewater like what Stidham is. Safe. It cannot always be safe. Sometimes you have to take a risk, and sometimes you might throw an interception. But even when you are safe, it can happen. We saw it with Stidham as well. So for me, it is Bo Nix, Zach Wilson, and Jared Stidham. And yeah, I like all 3 of them, but that would be my order.
Awesome. I think that most of Broncos country would be in agreement with you at this point. I'm going to go over to Trevor, see if he's with most of Broncos country. What do you think about these 3 quarterbacks being retained on this roster? What do you think the lineup would be if you had to go ahead and, guess it today, I guess, set up your lineup today?
Yeah, Stidham would be my backup, and I think that's where they're going in the first place. Look at how much snaps Stidham played compared to Zach Wilson in that last preseason game. This was truly a battle. Why didn't they split reps? And that's where I'm at. And I think that it's been Stidham, it's been Bo Nix competing for the number one quarterback job the whole time. Zach Wilson was only in it for a short amount of time, and he's always been that quarterback 3. I know that Zach Wilson makes the flashy plays, but he also puts the ball, in jeopardy a lot more. And you don't want that. I think a big thing you want in your backup quarterback is consistency. And I think that's what Stidham brings to the table, in my opinion, is the consistency. Not all the time is he going to be some of the interceptions he made were not all his, and were on him, in my opinion. So I know that the interceptions are on Stidham. I mean, technically, stat wise, are on Stidham, but I mean, again, if you watched it, it wasn't on Stidham, in my opinion. And maybe some other people agree as well or disagree, but I thought Zach Wilson, I thought he got away with a lot of interceptions, in my opinion. He threw the ball right into a guy's numbers. I'm not trying to harp on the guy at all. I like Zach Wilson's upside. I like his potential. And I do think that Sean Payton, there's a chance that maybe they were trying to showcase him a little bit, and it just didn't work out. And they didn't find any trade that was to their liking. But to me, Stidham is steady, and I think that's what you want in your backup quarterback. We're not talking about a quarterback that you need a backup quarterback. If Bo Nix is the guy that you need a ton of upside for, and the flashy plays, you just want him to be consistent. Don't turn the ball over. That's your backup quarterback. It's not your starting quarterback. So that's why I think Stidham, in my opinion, I thought he did a better job commanding the offense and just was consistent, in my opinion, more than Zach Wilson was.
I'll go kind of right down the middle. I think by keeping 3 quarterbacks, this is what you have. If you have a situation where Bo Nix has to be out for 2 games, I'm going to want to roll Jarrett Stidham out there, and hopefully we can just steady the ship. If Bo Nix is gone for 8 games of the season, I'm probably going out there with Zach Wilson because I think there's more upside, there's more potential, there's probably a little bit more excitement and zip on the arm. I mean, legs, everything. I think there's just more ways you can be explosive with Zach Wilson, though you got to watch to make sure he doesn't self-implode sometimes as well. So, I think you kind of have the best of both worlds with these quarterbacks. If I had to pick my lineup, though, I'd still put Stidham as my number 2 because I think he's going to be steady Eddie and be able to, especially heaven forbid, he just has to come in and finish a game for you. I don't want to see a quarterback throwing it right in between the numbers of a defender that's rushing him, just as an instance. Something a little bit more consistent would be great. Phil came in, and Trevor, I'll throw this one to you first. Came in dropping stars. He says he's okay with the running backs. He's glad that we kept the 3 quarterbacks that we just got done talking with, but he says Mims has to push Sutton to be number 1. What do you think about Mims? And this, I'm going to just tee up this question a little bit more. We've been talking this entire podcast. Albert's been banging the drum about average age, and when you start talking about a Cortland Sutton versus a Tim Patrick, when you start looking at this roster and this wide receiver room and the way it's set up, Cortland Sutton's looking like an old man in that room right now comparatively. So does Mims need to start stepping up and even pushing to be this number 1 wide receiver on this roster, maybe sooner rather than later?
I think he needs a push to be the number 3 wide receiver on this roster before he can get to number 1. But again, it's the truth. I mean, he hasn't done much at the preseason. Vele, we've all heard reports that Sean Payton likes Devon Vele, and he has similar qualities to Tim Patrick. So I think that it's Vele and Mims fighting for that number 3 wide receiver, that slot wide receiver, in my opinion. Cortland Sutton might be the older one, but I think he's a more dependable one out of this offense. And again, I'm not, to be clear, a little while ago I said, well, I think that Josh Reynolds should be, he's 100% that guy, and that number 2 guy. I think he should be that guy because he's that veteran presence that Bo Nix needs. I don't think that it's 100% he's that guy. You hope that some of these guys start emerging in this wide receiver room. I just think that the contract and where Josh Reynolds came from, he hopefully, like you said, by default, he should be that number 2. But Mims needs to start being the wide receiver 3 to this team before he can get to be wide receiver number 1 to this team. I think he's got a ways to go, in my opinion.
All right. I'm going to throw it over to Dutchy. Same question. Mims is a guy that we would love to see take steps, move forward. He was a All Pro, or was he just a Pro Bowler with as a returner? One of the two, maybe both. That being said, we'd like to see him step up on that wide receiver role. Is Phil right? Does he need to start pushing Sutton for that number one? And is he even positioned as as Trevor thinks he's more fighting to be that number 3 right now?
Right now, Mims need to get on the field, and that is one of the best ways to start pushing. And we have not seen him much, even in the preseason games. How much have we seen of him? Hardly anything. And that's why Mims, if he keeps doing this, he will never be able to push anybody for a number. I think we might even see Devon Vele or Josh Reynolds start pushing for number 1 wide receiver, because we have seen much more from Devon Vele than pretty much any of the others, except for Tim Patrick. And I think we should keep an eye on Devon Vele, because I think he will have some spectacular catches to be receiving, and I think that's where we need to look at.
I'll answer the question as well. Appreciate you, Phil, dropping stars and asking great questions. For me, I think it absolutely he does. And I just go to this. We didn't see any of the 2023 draft picks really even hit the field. If we follow Sean Payton's mold, we probably won't see a whole lot of the 2024 draft picks necessarily hit the field. Marvin Mims was on the roster. Marvin Mims was part of our roster last year. We barely saw him as a wide receiver out, past 4 games. So we were all crying for Riley Moss, and we're crying for, JL Skinner and, all these different guys. What's that?
Drew Sanders.
Drew Sanders to, all these different guys to hit the field. I think that it is an opportunity, I think, for Marvin Mims to step up. I think this is the year he goes from kind of being hidden in the background to truly being on the field. And even though that may not have been showcased during the preseason, you look at this roster, we just had the offensive line up there. It's go time for Marvin Mims. He was a top round pick, and I think sooner rather than later, we might see Courtland Sutton. Heck, we've been talking about it for 2 years about, is Courtland Sutton gone? Should we trade him at the trade deadline? Is he going to show up this year? Are we going to pay him? Sooner rather than later, that relationship is going to move on. Like we saw a lot of in these last 24 hours kind of move on from. And Courtland Sutton's going to be one of those, and we'll have to rely on some of this younger talent on this roster. That being said, guys, we kind of killed it on offense. We got to flip over to defense here for a little bit as well. One question I want to get to is a guy that I really liked and loved. I think there was a surprise on this one, but surprised that Jonas Griffith didn't make this roster. Albert, I'll go to you first. Surprised or bummed that Jonas Griffith, I'll find out which the wording was and get it up on the screen, but your thoughts on Jonas Griffith?
No, I wasn't surprised because he has a lot of injuries, and I think he really didn't show much during the preseason games. I think he was a little bit disappointment, in my opinion. So I'm not surprised, and it gives somebody else an opportunity to step up and see what he can do. Not a surprise for me.
Ricky said he was. He goes, I'm surprised that Griffith got cut. Trevor, are you surprised that Griffith got cut?
No, not really. I don't think he really outperformed, anybody. Certainly not Cody Barton. Lavelle Bailey, I think they really like him. That's an undrafted rookie they brought in. Clearly, and they clearly thought, again, they thought that Bailey might get picked up by a team. I think that's part of it. There's reports out there now that they're hoping to get Jonas Griffith back on the practice squad. So he's not on the initial 53-man roster, but that doesn't mean he won't play for the Denver Broncos anymore this season. So I'm not surprised. I do think that they thought they could sneak him through the practice squad, down to the practice squad, and maybe he's part of that call up whenever they need him. But I wasn't surprised. I think that inside linebacker is something that they're going to be looking at as well. Again, according to Kliss, that's something that they're trying to look at. And Sean Payton, kind of his remarks after the game Sunday, he kind of pointed it to that where it didn't sound like he was too happy about the inside linebacker room. Not to put words in his mouth, but to me, it just didn't seem like there was clear cut guys other than Singleton that he was too happy with.
Well, Ricky, I'll answer your question in both ways that I thought it was going to be posed because I didn't have it up on the screen quite yet. I'm not surprised. I'm right in line with what has already been said by my great co-host, Rocket Man, Albert, my high Dutchie, coming in and talking and saying that Jonas Griffith just didn't seem like he played up to a high enough standard to really land a 53-man roster spot, even though at times I think he was undercredited for what he was even doing on special teams, because I saw him stand out a couple times on special teams as well. But disappointed, yes, just because I had the ability to run into Jonas Griffith, talk to him. He had signed some stuff for me, and he's just a stand-up guy and a freak athlete. I just didn't think he seemed like he was out there playing tentative for some reason this preseason, and maybe it's coming off the injuries that he's been dealing with as well. But great question, Ricky. Appreciate it. A new name, so I wanted to get to that one as well. We got a few new names this evening. I appreciate you. Albert, I'll just go straight up. Any big surprise that you had when it came to the defensive side of the ball and the 53-man roster, the guys that we kept on, maybe the guys that we cut? Anything right off the bat that kind of just smacked you in the face?
Yeah, the only thing that really threw me off a little bit was Matt Henningsen, that he was let go. I thought he could be here at least on the field and be a really nice rotational player, and because I really liked what he was always doing, and unfortunately he's no longer there. He's probably going to be picked up at the practice squad again. But yeah, that was one of the surprises for me. And I'm glad that Enrique is back, because I think he will help the defensive line pretty good.
Yeah, I think they made the right decision. If Blackson was the decision, which it seems like it would be, going with Enrique. Trevor, any surprises for you when the 53-man roster came out, cuts were made? Anything that stood out to you, sir?
Look at how many DBs they kept. I mean, the safety room. 5 initial safeties, but you have 6 with Delarian Turner-Yell. I mean, you gotta wonder, and I haven't heard this brought up too much. You gotta wonder where their concern is with Brandon Jones' injury, and how concerned they are about him being able to stay on the field. I think that might be a part of why they kept so many safeties. And I mean, again, I don't think special teams was a part of why they kept so many DBs and why they kept, so many safeties. But man, I think that, Brandon Jones' injury history up to this point, again, being a new Denver Bronco, and I hope that he is on the field and he's healthy. You want the best for these guys 100%. I just think that there's a concern with his injury history, maybe why they kept so many safeties, in my opinion. But I did actually have them keeping these many safeties, so I did get that one right. That was one position I got right, but that was my biggest surprise.
It's how good we are over here at the DBR. It doesn't matter if you're the Dutchie. It doesn't matter if you're the Rocket Man. We get things right every now and then as well, man. So for me, I think the biggest surprise, and this is kind of surprising to be saying because I wasn't really hot on this guy when he came out in the draft a couple of years ago. We picked him up as an undrafted free agent, but he had some pretty shining moments. He also had a few penalties in his last game. And that's Thomas Incoom. I thought that he might have done enough to make it onto the 53 this year, made it onto the practice squad last year. And I think you nailed it on the head when you start keeping 4 to basically 5 safeties on your roster. There's other places that you have to make decisions, whether it's a Jonas Griffith, whether it's a guy like Thomas Incoom, I think, who may have been able to play himself into a roster spot as well. That being said, kind of excited that Jordan Jackson made this roster with what he showed out in the last little bit. Guys like Jonah Ellis, who have been showing out all training camp. Obviously, love that he's on here. Lavelle Bailey, like you said, I don't think that was just a guy that they could hide. So any other thoughts on the defensive side of the ball, Trevor, that you want to point out? And then I'll go to Albert as well.
Yeah, I just want to highlight a couple guys that I really like. I mean, this is more on the defense side of the ball, those are two guys that I actually really liked, and you just highlighted one right there, Jordan Jackson. I mean, he really balled out last game. I mean, I really do think that last game on Sunday was a big reason why he made this roster. This might be one of my best or one of my more favorite undrafted, free agents additions that they brought onto this team. In general, I just think that he's going to help that defensive line even more so depth wise. I mean, just how much depth he brings to the table. He adds to the table what they already have. Jordan Jackson, to me, I mean, he was the guy that stood out to me last game, and guy that just in general stood out to me, and a guy that is a big fan of, or George Payton is a big fan of, is a big fan of Jordan Jackson. He actually said that the Broncos are actually going to draft him before the New Orleans Saints ended up drafting him. So, that was a guy that stood out to me. Keydron Smith is another guy that I really like that made this roster. Talk about a guy that just kind of follows the ball around and just makes plays. I really do like Keydron Smith. So those are two guys that stood out to me that I really liked seeing making this roster, and I do think will be really solid depth pieces for this Denver Broncos defense, and maybe two gems down the line that can really help this team going forward, or if there is an injury that that comes about this season.
I'm going to flip it over to a couple other comments that were in here rather than just the same question, Albert. But first, long overdue, because you guys have been blowing up in the posse. Just a great conversation tonight, great interaction, great opportunity just to tell you how much I love you guys and appreciate guys and gals and all that you love and sharing and subscribing and coming on YouTube and Facebook and all the different platforms. Thank you very much. But I missed this from like halfway through our show. Our good friend from over there in Hawaii saying aloha Dutchie and the bearded wonder, and of course Rocket Man. Well, aloha to you, Patrick. I've seen you've been active in the comments, and I just couldn't not end the show without going back, digging out that comment and saying hello to you as well. Aloha and aloha very soon. As it's we'll be winding up the show, but had to get in there and say hello to Patrick. Appreciate you so much. Greg with another great question. Number 2 cornerback on this roster. Albert, I'm going to throw it over to you. This is a roster that, we thought maybe we had an answer originally with Levi Wallace, but, he hasn't been on the field all that much as he's been playing with some injuries as well. After that, you have Riley Ross, Jaquan McMillan, Chris Abrams-Strain, and of course Tremon Smith, who's mainly a special teams addition here. But who do you see being the number 2 cornerback as the season starts off? Greg's wanting to know.
This could be McMillan. What I saw here in the preseason games, it looked really well. And does he have some flaws? Yeah, he does. But yeah, I could see him be the number 1, 2 cornerback. The other one, the Drain.
Chris
Abrams-Drain. He looked really well. But I think the one that should be number 2 should be Riley Moss. He should be the number 2. But what I was really impressed of, while we had a weakness last year, I think that might be a strength this year. The run defense, run stuffing. Because I think they did excellent against the run. And I think that might be a huge improvement from last year. And by the way, while we have the show, I calculated the average age of this team.
I knew you were doing something off to the side. I could see you doing it. 19. Oh, wait. No, that wouldn't be right. Go ahead.
No guess.
I'm going to say 25.2.
Exact. 25.22.
Bam!
Wow.
We know things over here at DVR. Dang. Wow. Can't believe I did that. That's pretty awesome. That was not set up, ladies and gentlemen. Nope. For anybody listening at home, I literally saw Albert calculating. It was a pure guess. Sorry I took all your thunder, Trevor. You have no guesses after this.
No, I was going to say 25 as well. I didn't put the 0.2 in there, but I put 25.
I don't know why I did that. Oh, wow. Karma's kind of crazy.
The oldest one on the team, who is that?
Bowles
with 32.
There you go.
We have another player that is 30, and I think there's another player that's about 31 or 32 as well.
Wow.
Yeah. Pretty young team. Paul's wanting to know, I'll throw this one over to Trevor, is Strnad better than advertised? Or as advertised originally?
I think, yeah. I mean, again, I like some of the plays that Justin Strnad ended up making during the preseason. Yeah, especially that hit on Sunday that caused that fumble. You could hear that from miles away. But I think Strnad for me is as a special teams guy. I think that's what he's been most of his career. I think that's why you're hearing about the Broncos looking out on the waiver wire for inside linebackers. So I think Strnad, he's been a special teams guy the whole time. I think they think that's what he's going to continue to be. I don't expect anything different as of right now.
Right on. Paul's coming in and agreeing run stuffing and run game will be the strength of the game. No weaknesses, I think. Bowles is ancient. Oh my goodness, Paul. You're making me feel ancient. If Bowles is ancient. If it's for Trevor, maybe Paul, Bowles is ancient.
Wow, he's not ancient to me. I just said he's oldest.
I get it, but I'm just saying, as you look to him and I look to him, I look down on him in age. You look up to him in age. Let's put that way. Okay. I didn't mean to necessarily throw that slide up. Gentlemen, we're almost right at the hour. Any final thoughts? Anything that we missed in this one? I'll start it off because I haven't started off a whole lot of these. Surprised that they put a lot of faith, I think, in Nate Adkins, because I think this team is still going to utilize a fullback, and they've at least to this point, Michael Burton isn't on this roster now. Obviously, has the opportunity to make the practice squad, could be elevated like little Jordan Humphreys was all last year, it seemed, but I was surprised that Michael Burton, who I didn't have any issue with the way that he played. But I think they're going to be relying on Nate Adkins a lot more moving forward, being a tight end / fullback, listed as a tight end on that defense or on that offensive 53-man roster. Trevor, I'll go to you. Any thoughts as we kind of round out on this 53-man roster?
No, I mean the Nate Atkinson, like you mentioned, I think that it was interesting. I thought that there was a chance they may keep him. Just because he's very versatile. He can play tight end. He can play fullback. He can help you in many different ways. And that's kind of the trend we've been seeing with this roster a little bit. Because look at what Forsyth can do. He can play center. You can play guard. And then you can have the same thing, with Nate Atkins. He can play tight end. He can play fullback. So the flexibility, it just seems like players with flexibility end up making rosters over players that maybe are just stuck with one position. And I think it did help that the Broncos had a pretty good idea that Burton was going to be able to be on the practice squad. And it seems like up to this point in time right now, again, things can still change. As far as he can get, again, Michael Burton can get picked up by a different team. As of right now, it does seem like that they knew that, had a pretty good idea that they're going to be able to bring him back. Same thing with Jonas Griffith as well. And the same thing with little Jordan Humphrey. That's why you've seen those guys off the roster, because, the Broncos didn't think that they were going to get picked up at all. So keep in mind, guys, that's why a lot of these, rosters, maybe it's not the best initial 53-man roster, but a lot of these guys, they were trying to protect so they didn't get claimed from other teams. And except some of the guys that were released, they probably have a pretty good idea if they're interested that they're going to be able to bring them back on the practice squad, and they could still have a chance to play for the Denver Broncos this season.
I got one more that I'll save until I go to Albert Mile High Dutchie, and then we'll round up. By the way, I said I was going to drop Morgan Trinket's link in there. It is there now. Sorry for the delay. I kind of lost my head there for a moment. Albert, any last thoughts on this roster?
We already know who the oldest player is, and then we have Lutz with 30. Dixon with 31, and then we have another player that's 30. Who is that?
Cortland Sutton.
Nope.
29, I think.
One of the best tacklers in the league.
Alex Singleton.
He's 30 years old.
I would say.
All right.
Who is the youngest? Who is the youngest player?
Estimate.
What age?
20.
20. We have two 21s. And Estimate is the youngest player with 20.
Yeah.
Wow.
Albert's final thoughts is the age of this roster, I guess.
Yeah, we have to take that in note, because how many years can you get out of Jonah Ellis, 21?
Yeah.
How many years can you get out of Estime? Running backs do not last that long, but Estime has no wear on his rubber at the moment. You can have him for 5, 6, 7, 8 years maybe, and become one of the best running backs the Broncos ever might have if he keeps up what he is doing. So yeah, you can see what Sean Payton is doing. He is building for the future, and that's why Frank Crumps comes in. He might be not good at this moment, but let him sit a year or two behind Bulls, and he might become a really, really good left tackle. And this is what we have to start realizing. It is not a 2-day situation. It is a tomorrow and a day after tomorrow situation, and that is what the Broncos are doing right now. And I believe we will have a really good season, but next year I think the playoffs is just the bottom line. That is just the foundation. I think we will go much further, and that is what I believe. And then, are these the last final thoughts?
No, I'll go back around for a quick final thought as we round out. This was just final thoughts on the 53-man roster. If we had any things that we wanted to add that we missed, because there's been a lot of questions, a lot of comments, and a lot of great ideas. Posse, you guys rock. Thank you for all the star givers too, by the way. I'll give a little more shout out on that. But I wanted to give one other one that I thought I might have a possibility, and a guy that hopefully we talk about the practice squad. I wanted to answer one question because someone was asking when can we start filling that practice squad. Greg asked that question. Practice squad is tomorrow. 17 players on the practice squad. We'll start seeing all that information come out August 28th per the NFL. DeAndre Tillman is another guy that I would love to see hit that 17. I just thought he was a guy that really played fantastic and would love to see us take a guy and an opportunity and a chance on him as well. So if he can make the 53, the practice squad, I would be super happy, because I think that's a guy that could be elevated from time to time. Especially, we talk about it, guys, that we were pretty dang lucky with the health of our roster. Hopefully that continues, knock on wood. But that being said, we need to make sure that we have depth on this team, and that practice squad is going to be key. So watch for all that tomorrow as well. Like I said, let's get some final comments in. I'm going to go back to you then, Albert, since you're like, wait, I didn't get to say goodbye. I'll let you say goodbye. Start the goodbyes.
About Tillman, as long as he can keep all the penalties in control.
And by the way, just really quick before you start your goodbyes, Ron came in here saying his goodbyes before we did and dropping stars as he did so. So I just wanted to say thank you, Michael. He says, great show tonight, Keith, Albert, Trevor. Gives us the heart, gives us that mile-high salute. He's clapping it up as we're heading on out. But please give us goodbyes from you, goodbyes from Trevor, and goodbyes from me. Stick around, everybody.
Yeah, it was, again, an excellent show, in my opinion. The posse was on fire. We got some good questions from them, and we really enjoyed it. And thank you for all the people who donated the stars. And of course, we have to thank Miss Pearl for her support with being a sponsor. And I want to thank Paul, Scott, Graham, Michael, Ernie, Greg, Kenny of the K&K Show, which you guys should not forget to watch, Jeremy, Pearl, Michelle, my lovely wife, Roy, Phil, Jody, and Douglas Wall, who was new for us, and I think I'm missing one. But if I did, I'm sorry. Thank you for being in the show, and we'd love to see you again next time.
Yeah. We'll talk about next time. I'll make sure we talk about next time, but absolutely. Thank you, Albert. Always great recognition of every single one of our viewers, watchers, subscribers, supporters, the posse, the hot posse, as Paul would say. I appreciate it, Paul. It was hot tonight, man. It was hopping. Trevor, help us hop on out of here. What do you what do you got for goodbyes, man?
No, I just again want to thank everybody, for joining us tonight. It was a great discussion. More moves are going to be made. According to Mike Kliss from of 9 News, George Payton and the Denver Broncos can start making moves 10 a.m. tomorrow on waivers. So when waivers opens up, so I'm sure we'll hear something tomorrow. And I'm sure they'll be active over the next few days as well. Try to get this 53-man roster finalized before Seattle comes up. So no, but I just want to thank everybody in our comments tonight. The posse, you guys are awesome, as always, and we really, truly appreciate you guys. And more content to come and more shows to come, and we can't wait to break it down for you guys even more and along with you guys. So just want to thank everybody for sending stars, for continuing to support us as always. And it should be exciting next couple of days as we start to continue to see more roster moves, change and going around the league. And so, but just big thank you to everybody, and I hope everybody has a great, safe, fantastic week. And thank you for watching. Go Broncos.
Yeah. Love it, buddy. Also love all our supporters, but I was a little more out of touch on a 53-man cut down day than I'd like to have been. Do either one of you know Phil's question? He came in here dropping stars. If we picked up a linebacker today, and if not, is there any research that we need to do there or anything like that to maybe answer his questions? I'll go ahead and I'll start wrapping up. And if you guys come up with anything before the end of the show, just raise your hand, or do you guys already know? Did we just not pick up anybody today?
No, you can't pick up anybody today. The waivers wire will open up tomorrow. Today they just released Jonas Griffith, and they kept the Bailey and Singleton and all those guys. And then they kept the edge rushers as well, all 4 edge rushers. So just cut down day tomorrow and going forward is when they can start. I think the waiver wire opens up, so they can start adding to the team. Again, keep in mind what Kliss said. It sounds like they are pushing to try to add somebody in that inside linebacker room. So keep an eye on that going forward as well.
Very good. The only way I could see us maybe adding somebody is if you was some guy that was in the UFL only that wasn't part of an NFL roster, and you had an open spot, you could always do so. But I didn't hear of anything, but I just wanted to make sure I wasn't out of the loop. And thank you, Phil, for continuing to support our show, dropping stars on just a simple question. Appreciate it. Kenny Kirkpatrick says, Dutchie and fellas. Kurt says hello. They're running late on their high school show over there on K&K Sports Show. Well, hello to you, Kenny and Kurt, and everybody. Jen, appreciate you all. Thank you, everybody. First, Trevor, Albert, Mile High Dutchie coming on here, talking a little 53-man roster, mixing it up, Broncos on a Tuesday night. You can catch us every Tuesday, every Friday, 7:15 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, right here on the Rocky Mountain Sports Network over on the Denver Bronco Roundup. We go live on YouTube. We go live on Facebook. You can check out, I know that me and Trevor, you can check us out even on X if you want to, the hated X. You can check us out over there. It's all good. But really, to everybody in the posse who came in, was supporting the show, in with questions, who have grown us to this point, just was looking at our stats. We just added more viewers, more subscribers just as of this last week, and we appreciate all the love and support. We continue to try to do great things for you, bring you great broadcasts. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. We love you, and we can't wait to mix it up again. Of course, that'll be on Friday, 7:15 Mountain Standard Time. We'll be probably talking about that practice squad a little bit and whatever other Broncos news, notes, and rumors are out there as well. So until next time, boys and girls, A, check out Morgan Trinkets for all your Southwest jewelry, pottery, and estate gold at wholesale prices. B, make sure that you keep your feet in the stirrups. C, keep your guns in your holsters. And always, always, always keep the Broncos in your hearts. We'll see you guys soon. Peace out.